Hey there, I'm making a special video today doing something I very rarely do, which is to make a follow-up video to a video I posted yesterday, which was about a woman I called Jill. And Jill was contemplating a move back home with a mom who she felt was really codependent and there still weren't good boundaries there, and the husband of her mom, who she still had a lot of hard feelings towards. There were siblings. The mom has been married to this guy for, I don't know, 27 years, but it was her boyfriend when Jill was a girl. And she felt like things had really been turned upside down by this relationship of her mom's. So if you heard the letter yesterday, well, you may have felt upset. I don't think I've ever gotten such a high number of upset letters. There must have been maybe like 10% of the comments that we got were either really angry at me or really angry at Jill. And we don't like it when people are cruel to anybody here, especially the letter writers. So when I first got Jill's letter, I was confused why she had so much anger at this man. I called him her stepdad, and she clarified, I really don't see him that way. And I didn't understand what all the anger was about. And I had asked her, like, what's all the anger about? Why so much animosity? And was there abuse? Because it really pointed to abuse, the way that she felt about it. And apparently her sister had even harder feelings towards him. And they had never really forgiven their mom for bringing this guy into their lives. And I'll put a link to that video right down in the description section if you want to watch that first, and then you can watch this one. But all she could tell me was that this guy, he was, disabled, ex-drug addict, didn't work, didn't have a car, and the kids had felt like the mom was taking a big step down with this guy. So I gave Jill a really hard time. And what Jill was asking me is, how do I set boundaries against her? And the examples she gave me, I just kept not seeing it. I didn't see, I just don't understand why that's so terrible. The mom did sound kind of codependent or maybe a little bit immature, but not abusive. And since Jill is 47 and wanted to go live there for a while with her kid to save money, my answer was and is, if you go live in somebody's house, you have to live by their rules. You have to treat them with respect, regardless of all the hard feelings. But I had asked Jill, before I responded to her letter, like, what was the anger? And what she said was, there was no abuse at all. It's just that he seemed like he was beneath the kids' standards for their mother. They felt like the whole relationship was really sprung on them and they didn't have a say. But I was, thinking, well, when parents remarry, it's not really a democratic decision. And if, we're trusting parents to choose somebody who also has the kids' best interest at heart. And I just couldn't hear how the kids had been let down by this person who got together with their mom. So it's really interesting. And one of the things that I really zeroed in on, he's an ex-drug addict. And I have, from in my worldview, because I grew up with addicts in the house. My mom brought addicts in the house, and I have a feel for that. I just felt like an ex-drug addict is like this wonderful thing. So it turns out there was a piece that Jill wasn't able to articulate, and I think some of the critical commenters had picked up on that. There's something that Jill's not able to articulate, and they were right. And Jill first showed up in the comments and just said, oh, well, he was actively using drugs the whole time that we were kids. He didn't get clean and sober until after they got married when Jill was 26 years old. And I think she was in second grade when this guy started dating her mom. The dad was still in their lives, but had left the mom and he had sort of caused the end of the relationship. But there hadn't been technical abuse towards the kids. Well, I feel pretty strongly about people in active addiction being around kids, and it's one thing if it's your actual dad or mom and there's a reason to keep a relationship going. But when a divorced parent brings an addict into the house, and this is something that was done to me, and also before I realized it, what I did to my kids, I was dating somebody who turned out to be an addict. He was involved with my kids. What a disaster that was. And it was very difficult for me to set boundaries, and eventually he was out of our lives. That's another story. But I've been on both sides of this, and so my opinion is well informed. It actually really annoys me when people say I'm like identifying with the mother or identifying with somebody. Well, of course I do. I'm just your peer. Why would I not identify with people who are in the story here? We've all had childhood trauma. So I wanted to tell you the letter. When I published Jill's letter, I knew it was a tough love letter, and I wrote to her and I just said, listen, I answered your letter today. Have a look on YouTube. I was actually worried about it. I didn't want to call her attention to the comments, that there were so many difficult comments, and I was going in there a lot trying to like protect her from people calling her names and stuff. I was really worried people were being unkind to both her and me. They were like taking sides on this whole thing. But really, Jill and me were having a discussion about how do you do this. And the important thing about when people write me a letter is they're asking for my opinion. This is not me just piling on people. They're asking for my opinion and experience. So Jill and I have had a really great communication about this. So I wrote and I said, I don't get it. And she said, no, it wasn't abuse. It was this and this. So then I published the letter and I wrote to Jill yesterday and said, hey, thank you for the clarification. I responded to your question today on YouTube. This was one of my more tough love responses. In summary, I suggested you only stay with your mom if you can do so with cheerful respect for her wishes and friendliness and helpfulness around the house. I hope you find it helpful, and if you do go stay with her, I hope all three of you, and I actually should have said four, because I meant the mom's husband, who's now terminally ill and has dementia and COPD, which I also misspoke in the video, and Jill has a young son, a little kid son. So it's really all four of them. I hope you all find healing for all that happened. Thank you again for writing and sharing your story with others. So then today in the comments, I saw Jill said something, and she said, after all this confusion, I just wanted to say he didn't get sober until after they got married, like in Jill's adulthood. And that implied that he was still using. And so she said it wasn't cool. So I remarked there and I said, are you the original poster? Because, people's real name and their handle on YouTube, you don't always know who you're talking to. I said, are you the letter writer? Because if so, tell me more about this. This would change the whole story if he was in active addiction when he lived with you. And I'd like to hear about it and maybe respond to it. So here I am. All right. And this is so she wrote to me. She said, thank you so much. I was so honored that you picked my letter. I really enjoyed the video, and yes, it was tough love. It was about loyalty this whole time. Also, I felt disloyal to my sister if I didn't go along with whatever she said and told me to do. I've accepted that this is the person that my mom loves. And she says, see, I still can't say his name. She still has, this hurt about him. And I'm polite to him. Her husband did not feel like a stepdad to us. He was still in his addiction before they got married. We lived separate from him and vice versa, even though he was in the home sometimes. No dinners or holidays were spent as a family. Mom never shared anything about him, not even a proper introduction. Just poof, he's living here now. There wasn't an organic feel to building a friendship. It just felt forced. Having my dad, who I adored but was toxic, badmouth my mom and her husband to me and encouraging me to chime in didn't help. I feel a bit robbed by them all. I never got to form my own opinions back then. And this was something a couple of commenters picked up, and I think I made a comment about it in my original response, which was, what's with the dad? The dad ruined the marriage, but that was kept secret, like his role in he was cheating and emotionally abusing the mom. Nobody told the kids till they were adults. And so I think maybe the kids had sort of thought the mom left him and they were sad about losing their dad and they resented this new guy being brought in, which is kind of normal for kids. But it was forced on them in that, when Jill says I didn't get to have my opinion back then, it's because she didn't have information about what was really going on. And so, this guy, it's like, he's here, poof, he's just here. So that was something I saw other commenters pick up on, that it just sort of happened suddenly. It wasn't done in a natural and organic way. And like I said, when a parent has a new partner, it's not really a democratic vote. The kids don't get to vote on it. We all have to put our faith in the parent that they're doing something in the best interest of the kids. And I think this guy that she chose, now that I know he's in active addiction, I know that was not in the best interest of the kids. So Jill, my apologies. I didn't pick it up. And I think it's interesting, just like as a child of addicts and somebody raised in the presence of addicts, just like you, I totally relate to the way that like major pieces of the story can sort of fall away when you're trying to explain, like, I have these feelings, I don't like it, I don't know how to have boundaries around it, because the nature of addiction and the way that it kind of like mentally affects everybody there is it sort of shuts down perception. It shuts down your ability to name what's going on. The adults, when you're a kid, they will lie about what's going on. And that is exactly how we lose our powers of discernment and perception. It's how we get primed to get into relationships with people who have addictions or who are otherwise unavailable or unsuitable for kids. So in a way, I just think this is really cool because you have a little kid right now. What a great time for you to, be becoming conscious about this. And I got to say, I don't know if it's best for you to go stay with them, given that your mom and her husband who has dementia, they're not very likely to be able to deal honestly with what happened or how you feel about it. It sounds like your mom really wants you to like her and she wants everything to be okay, and that's cool. But you're not going to get this like deep, honest talk. That would be unlikely in my experience. So I just wanted to give you that, like active addiction in the presence of kids, Jill, it is abuse. It is abuse. It creates a kind of crazy. And I have sympathy for every person in this story because if your mom was in love with somebody who was actively using, I just know the kind of like mental shutdown that happens around that. No doubt she had her own stuff from the past. She certainly had it from your dad. She had this propensity to crap fit, but then she kind of dragged all of you in it. I see it now that you say this crucial piece of information. He was actively in addiction and she was bringing him in the house. And I think that sort of come and going thing reflects ambivalence or conflict or, shadiness or unsteadiness and all that stuff that's not good for kids. Like the puzzle pieces really came together when you told me that one thing. So I just want to validate for you. That's huge. That's like him being an active addiction is huge. So I understand all that feeling that comes up for you and all that feeling like nobody's looking out for the boundaries and nobody's looking out for you. Nobody's watching the kids. Is this safe? So then you say, there was an incident where my mom's husband stole her car and my sister was supposed to use it that day. And once he found out that she told my mother, he became angry and was about to physically hit her. Whoa, okay, here we go. Now we're touching the line of abuse. He was about to physically hit her to tell mom the truth that he took her car. It's all a bit clearer now. For Jill says. So thank you again. I'm going to work on me and put forth effort to extend grace and patience. So I just want to reassure everybody there's a loving and respectful conversation going on between me and Jill. Like I didn't dump on her. I tried to help her look at this situation with the information I had. So then she says, I moved out of my mom's at 23 and the mom's husband wasn't in the picture at that time. And she moved to a different state 10 years ago and then got married. And after her divorce, she stayed and ended up meeting yet another toxic person. Now I have a son, she says. My job laid me off and that's why I'm going back home. It's been a lonely 10 years. And it's like, that's where my heart goes out to you, Jill. I think your first letter, it was all about sort of the anger and the desperation to have boundaries. And, I wasn't hearing that. So I hear you're in a really fragile place. You have a kid. You're going right back into the place where all of it happened. None of it's been healed. None of it's been acknowledged. And again, it's really normal for families who have these kind of things not to acknowledge or heal it. But don't despair because we do it on the inside. We can do this on the inside. And that's what this channel is about. It's for people who want to heal and who want to make changes in their life, whether or not anybody else changes. And that is the most empowered place to be. So you're in a very empowered place that you get to decide if you go into this house. But I hear you, I'm just not surprised you had a husband, and then another toxic person, and then the layoff, and then here you are as a single mom. I was in the same thing. I was a single mom after much success in life. When you have CPTSD, problems befall us. They just do. And relationships fall apart. And here we are. So I can imagine how much fear is going on. You also said, I'm continuing to do the daily practice and meditation, and I'm just at the beginning, and this stuff is hard. I love you. Yes, the daily practice is such a relief, and going through this stuff is hard, but now you have a place to take all those feelings about what happened to you, about the way that you were disrespected, the way you didn't get to have opinions or boundaries, the way that stuff would just be sprung on you that wasn't in your best interest, the way that you, and also that you mentioned that your biological dad, your father, was kind of bad-mouthing them, and that didn't help, and you felt robbed by them all. Yeah, it sounds like your parents were about their agenda and they had trouble protecting the kids from their agenda. At least they told you, they didn't tell you what the breakdown of the marriage was about, but it sounds like they left it unclear enough that you ended up with a really damaged sense of respect for your mom. So perhaps now you can heal. And I just want to reassure you, this doesn't depend on your mom getting real or honest or open with you about what really happened. She might. If it's like my family, it's probably not going to happen. But through the daily practice, you'll start to unpack your own fears about it, your own resentments about it. And then what happens is this kind of channel opens, and what comes in is like clearer information, clearer memories, just as is happening in the sequence of this letter. Like we're demonstrating for people what it looks like. More information kind of opens up to us, and we're like, oh, I see what was going on. I see why I have these feelings. And then as you can start cleansing those feelings and start to have more neutrality towards your mom, because now that you're 47 and she's whatever in her 70s, and she's still kind of in this tough place, the fact is she's caring for a terminally ill partner. He has dementia. This is a very tough situation. So I sort of stand by my suggestion, like think twice about moving home unless you can move home with a feeling of more neutrality towards what happened in the past and kind of patience, like you said, patience and grace towards her and all of her weird foibles and personality things. It sounds like she's had a rough go of it, and she's done the best she can. I don't want to say that. I hate it when people say they're doing the best they can. It's just not going to get better is my point. It's probably not going to get better. So if you're going to live with her and receive her help with getting a place to live so you can save money and get on your feet again, I think grace and patience, this is a perfect time in your life to develop that, like deeper, stronger, more for real than you have before. Because Jill, the thing that I wanted to share with you today that was really on my mind when I was feeling the pain of all these people getting angry about you and me and, the whole thing, like I think your story like really touches a lot of people's pain in a lot of ways, and their anger at people like you or people like me or people who say anything or people who don't, whatever. It touched people for better, for good and bad. There's a lot of really lovely comments there too, but it touches us because here's the truth, and this is really why my channel exists, the message that I really, really want to share with everybody, and why I'm making this informal, not on my shooting day video, is that we want to heal from what happened to us, not just so that we can survive. We do need to survive. We want to heal not just because we want to feel better, although we must feel better. We need to feel better like right now. But we heal to become our full and real selves, not just so that we can be ourselves, but so that we can bring to the world the immense goodness and greatness that's inside of us. And that is the tragedy of trauma, is that it suppresses who we really are. It suppresses our greatness, the tremendous love and compassion that we are able to bring to the world because we've been through it before. Like your experiences, Jill, going through this, when you encounter other people who are struggling in a similar way, and you're encountering them like right now in real time, right here on YouTube, and the comments, the mean ones, the kind ones, the ones where people are like, damn, that was intense. And you're touching me, and what we're all doing together here is we are all healing. We're healing the consciousness that was sort of laid on us so that we no longer carry that consciousness. We don't pass it on to the youngsters. We don't afflict it, fling it onto the people we encounter at the grocery store and walking down the street. And our families and partners or ex-partners, we're able to show up with grace and patience, like you said. And grace and patience, for anybody who's kind of at an early stage of healing, who's scared of those concepts, and I relate, because grace and patience sounds like you're just going to go, fine, walk all over me, I'm a doormat, abuse me. But that's not what grace and patience is. Grace and patience is something that you get to have when you have boundaries and you don't take abuse, and you don't let people walk all over you, and you know that you're going to walk away if people become abusive or call the law or do whatever you need to do. But have grace and patience because you realize how very damaged people are. and that there's no amount of raging at them or, setting boundaries or whatever, in a harsh way. It's not going to make them change. We set boundaries so that we can protect ourselves. We can keep ourselves safe. We can guard things that are hard for us until we're ready to face those things that are hard for us. And if that day never comes, that's okay. But what healing looks like is you have like a longer tether. You get to go further out into your experience and into loving people and into tolerating people because you can. Because the things that are hard are just, you feel more neutral to them. You can bring yourself back from the edge when it happens. And when you have a lot of practice like this year after year, and you're doing the daily practice, which is basically like a rinser, it's like a spout that just keeps rinsing away the pain that comes up. We have our experience. We go visit mom, we get into a little fender bender on the road. Something sets it off and the trauma comes back. And every day we're in the daily practice with this nice warm rinse, just like washing it off. It comes back because life is triggering, life is hard, and, we had trauma. So we're vulnerable, but less and less are we vulnerable, and more are we graceful and patient and able to show people that kindness and respect that we know, like you can know that all people kind of deserve that, but it's impossible to give when you're still in the midst of being hurt by somebody. I mean, saints do it. Saints can do it even as they're being hurt, right? We have people in history who have, been put to death gracefully even. I'm not volunteering for that. Don't do it. Don't be put to death. But just know, like, some people they are where they are. And while they're alive is our chance to, show them a little love, bring them a cup of coffee, tell them a little bit of story with gratitude in it. That's one of the things. I've been getting in touch with some of my older relatives who I haven't seen in 20 years because my family's so estranged. And what's naturally coming out of me is a desire to tell them, hey, I wanted to tell you, there was a time when I was a teenager and I was really ashamed of myself. And I was having very dark thoughts. And you came along and you just happened to tell me that you thought I was a neat kid. And I thank you for that. Or I had an aunt and uncle who let me stay with them every summer when I was visiting my dad. My dad lived in a garage and it wasn't suitable for kids to go to. I always liked them, but then I didn't see them for 20 years. And when I did, I was like, thank you. I just wanted to thank you for doing that. Now that I'm an adult, I realize what a big deal that was. So there is a lot of grace sometimes when we show up and we go back to the scene of the crime where we were hurt. It's possible. And I just want to tell everybody, don't feel like you have to push yourself back into the hornet's nest. You don't have to. And for the sake of other people and the little boy in this story, don't go back if it's going to be so triggering that there's going to be a lot of, meltdowns and crying. That's not good for him. It'd be better to, live somewhere super cheaply, even if it's a trailer for a little while. You just, like the peace and the certainty that your mom is paying attention to you is worth everything. That's a very valuable thing. And it doesn't have to be a big house and it doesn't have to be fancy. It needs to be safe and it needs to be alert and paying attention. So I'm thinking of you and your son. My heart goes out to you. Whatever you decide to do, Jill, I just really just send you my strength. And everybody who wants to comment, if you have something bad to say to me or to Jill, please forget about it. That's not why this channel is here. The people who write letters here are courageous. They're asking to be told my characteristic, this is what I really think, truth. And I think you're amazing, Jill. You opened up to this and you were even, kind and gracious when I was like, okay, it's tough love. I know it's going to be hard. And it was one of the harder, responses I ever gave to anybody. But I'm just sending you my love. You amaze me. You're courageous. You came back for more. Me too. I really didn't want to. I didn't really want to get on YouTube today and be here when people were lashing out at me. Some of the worst things we just removed. We're not. There's a thing in any kind of social media space is it's like broken windows policing. If you let people just start cursing and calling you names, it kind of sets the bar like it's okay to do that. And we just don't. We don't do that. So people who think you can do that, I just think you're probably stuck in your trauma and you're in a very childlike place where you think that it's okay to treat people like that, and it's not. It's not okay to treat people like that here. A lot of people think that because this is a YouTube channel, the comments are public. They're public so long as we've decided to allow them, but it's really like a living room. It's a living room where I invite a guest to come in and talk to me. That's Jill today. We're talking and we're allowing you to come listen. But when people are rude to the host or to the speaker, we just show you the door. We don't have comments like that here. This is a place to show love. People who have been through trauma need more than anything to get some validation and encouragement. That doesn't mean, some people were like, how could you be so mean to Jill? And it's like, I don't intend to be mean to Jill. She really asked me, how can I help this situation? And that was my honest take. So now that I have more information, now I very tenderly want to ask your forgiveness for the tone of that letter that seemed to not understand you. When you told me one more piece of information, I could hear you. And I thank you for that. And I hope you continue to be in a place where you can express yourself like that, where you have access to all the information that you need to try to get understanding and empathy from other people. So this is good practice for all of us. So please share your love with Jill if you would, everybody. She deserves it, and she's going to need your support if she's going to go live with her mom and see if she can take her life one step up and get on her feet and get ready to live on her own again. Okay? We send our love to your mom and to her husband too. If you want to see my response to Jill's first letter, if that's important to you, I'm going to put that link down in the description section below all the things where you can find how to access courses and things with me. If you want to watch a video about how to hold your boundaries when you go home to your family, this one's for you, Jill. I've got that lined up right here, and I'll see you very soon.